Good morning.
Good morning. Welcome.
Happy Easter. Today is April 9th, 2023, and we're very excited. Easter is just a reminder, isn't it, of happy times, I think, from childhood, where many of us woke up to Easter baskets full of goodies and sometimes got to get all dressed up to go to church in your pretty new dress or
No,
suit.
yeah, my parents would not let me wear a dress, not even if I wanted one. Yeah.
So it just inherently is a happy time. Of course, the religious occasion is the resurrection of Jesus, and we'll talk about that and what it means to us today. But first of all, let's come together with a prayer. So let's know together that there is one source of all life. We call it the Father principle, the Father-Mother principle, the source of all life that is everywhere present. It is all-powerful and all-knowing, omniscient, omnipotent, and omnipresent. And so we know for ourselves that this God energy, the creative energy, lives within us. We are a speck of the divine. And we so easily forget that that is our purpose, to be here on earth, to create our life as we would like to experience it. And so we know that all the power of creativity is ours. We give thanks for knowing this. We choose to use it wisely. We release and celebrate our new life daily. And so it is.
It's funny when you mentioned how cheerful and bright and hopeful it was for me, and the church that I attended when I was quite young. What I believed was happening is that Jesus was going to be crucified for my sins,
Oh,
and that it was a time to feel guilty and to feel awful about yourself and about the hope that you might make it because he died for you. And then I got boxes of candy, a basket of candy, and Easter bunnies, and I think I don't know. I'll eat the candy, but the whole idea of Easter was just a trauma mixed with candy.
and I never knew that those bunnies laid eggs.
I did nor did the bunnies, and they have been resentful ever since because the bunny union was protesting that. But it's
Yeah, it
I
is
think
mixed feelings. I know it
it's a
was.
very mixed, and I found myself even as we get ready for Easter every year thinking, what are we going to talk about? And it's not difficult to talk about it. Actually, it's kind of exciting to talk about, but it's exciting to talk about it with my new mind rather
Right,
than with my old
right.
mind, because my old mind was just, it was a time of shame and embarrassment, and I think a lot of people have grown up with that. They've set it aside, but I don't think it's entirely gone.
I know. I got used to how we celebrate Easter for many years. By we, I mean our Centers for Spiritual
Yeah,
Living,
yeah.
which is it's all about celebrating new life and renewal. And one time I went skiing in Vail, and they were going to have an Easter celebration, sunrise celebration up on the slopes. And I went with friends and family, and I want you to know we got up, I think at like 3 in the morning, to leave by 4 in the morning to get up on the ski
Lift, yeah.
lift to get up to the midsection where they had a big, food and recreation, a place to go in and get warm between ski things and ski runs. And we waited, and we were all, it took hours to do this, to get up there for the, and it was supposedly a non-denominational Easter message. And the preacher stood up and said, "You killed Jesus."
Hmm.
And I said, "Oh no!" I came to all I love sunrises and I love sunsets, and they're just very inspiring to me.
And
As a
you,
matter of fact, we got married and sunrise and came back at sunset after seeing a
and
sunset.
you grew up loving Jesus.
Yes, I
Yeah,
did, and
yeah,
I did never think I killed him,
yeah.
and so it was just. I was so disappointed. I was just so disappointed. As a matter of fact, I didn't even stay for the whole whatever that was.
Hmm.
So I know that many people have had both of those experiences, and So let's just start out from the front saying what we believe about it is
Right.
that we think his resurrection was natural. We think that we all resurrect our spirits and go on living in a new and free way, and that that's what we celebrate.
Right.
So did you want to?
Well, go ahead with your quote. You were going to read a quote.
Oh, I was going to
yeah,
read a
it's
quote.
Great quote.
Thank you. And this is from Eric Butterworth, a famous Unity minister in New York City. He said, Easter is not a passport to another world. It is time to take a new look at ourselves and awaken to our God self, here and now. End of quote. Because no matter how many times we hear it, we never tire of being reminded to use it. To use it. And by that I mean to, we call it practice the presence. You know, practice knowing you're connected with God. And then all good things and good acts flow from that. And this is also an interesting quote from Hinduism. And it's exactly what we believe. It says, your real self, with a capital S, that means your eternal self, is identical to the ultimate energy, capital E, meaning God, of which all things in the universe are a manifestation. All things in the universe are a manifestation.
And their end is our talk. That's just such a beautiful, in one sentence encapsulates everything that we believe and know to be true. And so much of what we have to do is to try to overcome pre-existing beliefs, or what I call hand-me-down beliefs, that are not ours but have gotten integrated into our consciousness, so that we are comfortable feeling like we're sinners, or that we're not enough, or that there's something wrong with us. And to make things worse, of course, we're constantly being told there's things wrong with us and that we need to market ourselves in a way that would help us get better.
And we become adults and nobody has to tell us. Our inner critic tells us.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we internalize that voice. So several thoughts about the resurrection, and I thought about the resurrection, and for me it's a wrong choice of words. And I say it's a wrong choice of words. If it were me and I were writing, and I'm not, it would be the metamorphosis of the Christ consciousness, the metamorphosis of Jesus into this next dimension. And the best example I can think of that is the caterpillar with way too many legs and too few shoes.
And pretty fat.
And fat, and spends all of his time eating. That's interesting. I do that too. I'm sorry. Way too much.
Oh no!
Yeah.
I hope it's not time
Oh,
for
my
you to
God, yeah.
metamorphosize yet.
Yeah. Okay, I'm not a caterpillar. I'm not a caterpillar. Yeah, I feel better now. Thank you. But the caterpillar, who, if you were to ask him about the butterflies, he would say, "I don't know who they are or what they are, but they're certainly not. They're not like me, and they're not me." So the caterpillar, because of where he is in consciousness, cannot conceive of a butterfly. What's interesting is that the caterpillar goes into a cocoon. And what's interesting to me about the story of Jesus' resurrection was that he was put in what I would call a cocoon with a big rock placed in front of it.
The cave.
Yeah, the cave. And if you look at the cave that he was in, the rock in front of it, it's not unlike a cocoon that's very hard on the outside and able to be gotten through from the inside. So but what happens to the caterpillar, which I think is what happens, is there's a decomposition, if you will, of everything except the essence, or what it is that made the caterpillar a caterpillar and will make the butterfly a butterfly. That essence
Goo
is,
with DNA, right?
yeah, you can't see it, you can't touch it, it can't explain itself, and it's there and has always been there. The butterfly has always been in the caterpillar. We have always had God in us, and because we can't see it, we don't believe in the metamorphosis. So Jesus' death, or our death, or the death of any of us, is the opportunity for us to recompose into something greater and something better and something bigger and something grander than we've ever imagined in our caterpillar body. And so I think if we could look at it in any way, it would be a dramatic and wonderful transformation, as opposed to the death and dying scenario with the hope that we're all going to make it in the future. I want to use another metaphor, though, also, and this is something that occurs to me on a regular basis. We are all all of the time dealing with gravity. We can't see it until scientists determined what it was. It didn't exist. But we're all dealing with it. And so we don't know we're dealing with it. We have no idea that it even exists. But when we get into the swimming pool, suddenly we're weightless. Suddenly we don't have gravity, and we don't know what it was that changed, but we know that we can float now. And I would say that dying is the equivalent of giving up gravity for the weightlessness of consciousness, for the weightlessness and possibility of consciousness to expand and to travel. And there's something that happens when you jump into a pool and you're at least 10 pounds overweight, like I am, 20, all right, more. But is that you think, oh my God, this is so easy on my legs and my knees, and I like this. Imagine transitioning from this life into the next and think, oh my God, no more pain, no more struggle, no more suffering.
Yeah, very much the same.
Yeah, and so I think what we need to do is to celebrate the process of our being, knowing that we will continue in our being, and that the beingness that we are is connected to all other beings. And as it says in the Upanishads, which I think that quote is from, anyway.
One of them is.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the one that you, it's from the Upanishads. The Hindu, yeah, the Upanishad. The beauty of that, it encapsulates so completely that we are free and we are connected. We are one, even though we appear to be separate. You reading it again?
Yeah, well, I hadn't read it yet, but it is right, just what you're saying. The one from the Upanishads, which is also Hinduism, says, "The one who is beyond time, beyond space, and beyond cause, and beyond that which follows the cause, knows how to enwrap oneself in a mantle of divine happiness."
You could read that every day of the week, and if you're like us who are just over 50, it's a good thing to read every day, because as you know, it's easy to get scared in being in the conditions that we're in, where we're constantly being threatened by one combat situation or another in some part of the world, or conflict, or there's so much going on to scare us that we can live scared.
Exactly, but today, although those of us who practice spirituality and know that as our true essence, really know and believe that their life goes on, as you said, just without the weight afterwards. And so it's easy for us to believe in resurrection or transformation or metamorphosis. But, you know, what's interesting about that time was that Jesus was a Jew, and his comrades were a Jew, and everybody who was sad about his death, and they did not, and I think most still today do not believe with the Jewish religion, that there's an afterlife right away. They believe that sometime in the end, souls get resurrected, but not when you die. So this was a big surprise when they were experiencing him after death. Because they thought there was no life after death. It's a little bit easier for us to believe it now. At least it is for me. But I think that's a good point to remember. So what does it mean for us today? What does it mean to you? And I would like to read another quote. And this is Eric Butterworth. He says, "Easter is a time to take a new look at ourselves and contemplate the divinity in us, the depths of our own innate God potential. It's a time to reappraise the principle that makes all overcoming possible." Because all overcoming is possible, and it starts with a decision of the mind. You have the right to decide. You have the right to choose again. And when you know that your desires are empowered by all that is, this is very powerful. You know, we're taught as kids that you don't get everything you want. You know, I don't care what you want. You don't get everything you want. But, you know, the Bible tells us, ask. Ask and you shall receive. Knock and the door is open to you. So we teach a principle of creativity called the law of mind, that what our mind desires and believes it can achieve, it achieves. Through the law of mind. It's not our power, it's the power of divinity.
When it's ready. when you're ready, when the conditions.
when you're ready for it.
Right, and if a 5-year-old says I want to drive a car, you have to say no,
In good time.
and the answer isn't no, no. The answer is when you're ready, when you're prepared, when you've grown sufficiently. And so, if we are going to steer our way through life the way we'd like to, we're going to have to mature. And what you're talking about, which I love, is the power of decision.
It is.
The great power of decision, the decision that you make to take care of you, to move forward, opens the door to all things in the universe. And I think back at some of early Christianity's intention, unspoken intention, was to help individuals who were having terrible lives not be so caught up in how terrible their life was, because they were going to get another better life when it was over. The other strategy for a lot of early Christianity was to scare people into behaving so that they wouldn't hurt each other. I think the biggest thing that would scare me about not being nice to one another or not being fair to one another is the eternality of life, and that none of us are separate ever, ever, ever. And that the people that you hurt and harm and want to do harm to are the people that are going to be forever in your life, because we are not ever separate from each other.
Exactly. And that's what Jesus meant when he said,
Yeah.
what you do unto the least of my brethren, you do also to me. He's saying, I and he are one, and so are we all. So when we realize that, it helps us be a little kinder, a little more understanding of others and their foibles. Some of the things that I thought we could decide are things like this. We could decide to have an attitude change. From if we have any surly attitudes, that's up to us, how we act and how we feel. We have a possibility of dropping an old resentment. And when you drop one old resentment, we call them your cherished resentments, you become lighter, the whole world becomes lighter. You can decide to forgive. That's why there's so much emphasis in the New Testament about forgiveness. You lighten up yourself and the world when you forgive somebody. Forgive and release.
I think of old resentments as being old clothes that no longer fit and that restrict you and limit you and are dated and you've outgrown them. And trying to get into the clothes that you no longer should or want to wear or could wear is very freeing. Getting past that, giving them away.
You can decide upon a new direction in your life. It's never too old to change. You're never too old to change your mind, to change your direction, what you want to do with your time, what you want to do with your creativity. You can decide anew on your spiritual practices, to do them more intently. This idea of practicing the presence, as if God is with you all the time, because it is. It is, but we can forget about it and not exercise it. So decide to practice the presence. And there was I don't know what it was, but it was a whole movement in Christianity, and not our branch, but I really liked it. Everybody was wearing little bracelets that would say WWJD, which meant, what would Jesus do? That's practicing the presence, because he is our example of love, humility, healing action, loving action. And so that's it's a good model. I thought it was a good model. Of course, many people who were raised with this "you killed Jesus" kind of shiver at the name, even hearing the name. So a lot of abuse has taken place in the name of Jesus. So the definition of to resurrect is to revive the practice, use, or memory of something, or to bring new vigor to it. So you can resurrect your past interests, your past passions. You can resurrect them and resurrect your own life.
You can resurrect your innocence.
That's a big one.
You could start over in your own mind and look at the things around you and say, what am I looking at? And am I looking at it in present tense, or am I looking at it through my past? Am I seeing what is in front of me, or am I looking at what's behind me and I don't realize it? And so often we see life that's in front of us from what's behind us. And it distorts our vision. It's like taking the sunset and putting a filter over it so that you don't see it, and then saying there's no more sunsets or sunrises rather. And so we have that choice, and presencing yourself is being in the present and recognizing that your past is often even a bigger outpicturing than is your presence. And that's something we can do. So we can now go through this kind of metamorphosis where we can be like children, and Jesus actually talked about that, come to me as a child. If we were to come to him as a child, we would then not come to him with demands, but come to him with recognition of our greatness, of possibility.
Right, demands or a lack of
Yeah.
belief, lack of faith.
Yeah.
So, I would like my final quote is Ernest Holmes.
Good quote.
Yeah, can't leave Ernest out. He says, "There is no resurrection life as opposed to another life. There is no immortality as opposed to mortality, any more than there is a divine mind which is opposed to the human mind. The universe refuses to be divided." Jesus understood this when he said that God is not a God of the dead, but of the living. End of quote.
Look at this. That's really wonderful. Yeah. If I can borrow this for a second. A God of the living. So much of what we are combating has been dead for a very long time. You know, so many experiences we've had, they're not alive anymore. Those they're gone. They're dead. They've been. In fact, it would actually be helpful if we allowed them to become fertilizer for new ideas, rather than to be what gets in our way and that we trip over. And I think this whole idea of the resurrection, the renewal of life, the starting over, the springtime of life. You know, when you look out at spring, what you see is that everything that is decomposing is fertilizer for today, is fertilizer for the possibility of new life. So I would invite you to treat those things that have harmed and hurt and been in your way, not as thoughts that you want to hold on to, but as the fertilizer for a better quality of life. And as we're willing to till the soil of consciousness and awaken ourselves to the possibility of a life that works for us and for everyone else, we then allow ourselves to be renewed. So I'm inviting you this week and every day to ask yourself, what is it that I want? What fertilizer do I want to create today? Which is taking the past that has interfered with you. It could be any number of things. Am I going to have to deal with heavy traffic? That's fertilizer. That's not me, and it's not something I have to worry about. What I need to do now, and what I want to do now, is embrace the traffic, embrace the cars, embrace all of the differences that on the highway.
Embrace the trash, but not too tightly.
Yeah. Well, not and wear gloves. And you know, I remember some time back sitting in the car on the way to work and thinking about the different people and all agreeing without saying a word to stay on the right side of the road.
That's true.
All agree,
especially on I-95.
Yeah, and almost all of them agreeing to stop when the light is red, even though when it's yellow, it does mean speed up. But what I thought about, isn't it interesting that there is hundreds and hundreds of people that are going places every day that have a quiet agreement to work together for the better of all of them without even knowing each other. And I think it's a great example of an unspoken agreement that we have to care about one another and ourselves as well, that fits in a lot of places that we don't realize it does. We don't notice the number of agreements that we make to support each other. We do notice when somebody runs the red light or when somebody does the wrong thing. And if we're not careful, we then hold on to that, and we don't allow that to become fertilizer. We keep it as, oh yeah, we got to be careful. People are just not nice anymore. It's not true that people aren't nice anymore. Some people break rules. That doesn't mean that all the rules for humanity and for our soul have been broken. We can be innocent again.
And so if you resurrect, one thing that would be really good to do in your resurrection, if you resurrect old times where you were a victim, you know, it's very hard to feel like a victim, that you've been victimized, without feeling angry at the person that you feel did it to you. And so if you realize that you cause your own experience, and don't turn it into self-blame. Just turn it into self-creation, self-causation. Release that person or persons from being the persecutors of your life.
Allow them to be resurrected.
Yeah, and allow yourself to be resurrected. And you cannot be resurrected from victimhood while you are still blaming and making them the perpetrators of your pain. So release them, let them go. And even if you have to say, I don't know why I caused that, I don't know why I experienced that, but I release that person. I refuse to be a victim. And so it's a good starting point, and it will work itself out after that.
And I think if you're drawing conclusions, as we like to do, we draw conclusions about situations and circumstances because it helps us organize our world and our mind and feel safe in it. If we can make up a story that makes everything make sense, we then feel more comfortable, even when we're not safe. And so the purpose very often of the myths we make up is to create safety. And inherent in that are the flaws that we don't get to see what's actually going on. And I'm reminded of a person who had a car crash. Is that good or bad? It was pretty bad. Or was it pretty good? Well, I would say let's take a longer look. And she went to the hospital, and they did an x-ray, and they found out that she wasn't as injured as she thought she might be, but she did have a tumor that they would never have discovered had she not had an accident. And they removed the tumor, and she said, wow, what a lucky thing that I had an accident. I tell people all the time, the best time to evaluate the quality of your life and what happened to you and what it really means is about an hour and a half after you're dead. Because by then you'll have all the information you need. We don't have the information that we need to make the judgments we often make and live under rather than above. And so we're oppressed by conclusions we've drawn about life's purpose and meaning and experiences when we don't really have enough information. So what I would say is, it seems as if the road is bumpy right now because it feels that way, and maybe this is the best road I can be on right now. Maybe let's see what's next, let's see where that's going to lead me, rather than what happened to me, what's wrong with me that I ended up on a bumpy road.
Mm-hmm. And I'm also hearing that what is in the Bible that Jesus reportedly said, which was to the people, to the crowd of who crucified him, was, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And if we could use that phrase when we think about someone who hurt us, remember, people can hurt you without harming you. This is a very big distinction. It can hurt, but it doesn't mean that they have harmed you. You are very recoverable. You can recuperate well if you let it go and say, I don't know why that person did that. I don't know what their motivation was, but they didn't know what they were doing, or they wouldn't have done it. So I think that's a help in forgiving others. Yeah. Also know that it's for you. It's not for them. And you're not saying it's okay what they did. You're saying, no, it wasn't okay and it hurt. But I release it because I want to release me. And so that was also what was being taught with that segment of the story. So I think it's time now for you to go out and just have a wonderful Easter and do these spiritual practices of forgiveness and
for those of you that want to follow us or be involved with us or connected to us in a greater way, you can go to
our website, which is cslpalmbeaches.org. And at the top of that website, there's a button that says Ways to Donate. And so we invite you to go there, and you can easily donate. There's several ways. And we thank you very much for your support.
One way to donate, of course, is to send us as much money as is fair for you to be able to expend on our ministry. An even greater way is to listen to what we've shared, take that in, and apply that in every way that you possibly can and share it.
And share it with your friends.
That's what I mean, yeah, because our ministry is not about supporting it financially. Our ministry is about making a difference in the world, for making the world a better place to live in. That's what we're here for. It costs money to do that, of course, because everything we're using here, from the computer to the insurance we have to buy to be able to be on the air, All of that costs, there's no question about it, but that's not what we're doing it for. And I think today in particular, this is important because it seems as if greed is often the thing that leads. And this is not about greed. This is about us being able to continue to do what we believe. And for those of you that watch us on a regular basis who also believe, our mission is to support, encourage, and uplift you in every way we possibly can spiritually. And we thank you for your contribution of love, compassion, empathy, and of course finances.
And know that as you give, you do receive.
Yes.
This really is an investment in your prosperity because you have to circulate your money, your finances to get more.
Yeah.
It's returned to you as you give, not after.
So why don't we end with an ending? We call it treatment for those of you that are new to us. It's
spiritual mind
treatment, which is affirmative prayer.
Affirmative prayer.
And we're going to end with that. So what I know right here and right now is that we are quite literally all in this together, this thing called life, this magical, wonderful, and amazing process of life. We are all connected. We are all really one in this life that is unfolding. So every time we support one another, we support ourselves. Every time we are supported by another, we affirm their good and their love and their kindness. And we say yes right here and now to our own good, to our own power of decision. We say yes to the possibility of a life that is greater than we've even imagined. We say yes to all that is good in our lives and all that is good and outpicturing in everyone else's life as well. We say thank you. We know this is being done moment to moment, hour to hour, day to day for our entire lives, and we're willing now to recognize it fully. Knowing this to be true, we say thank you. We release it, we let it go, and we watch, and we wonder, and we smile, because all that we have sent out, all that we have released comes back to us 1,000 times more than we had imagined. Knowing this to be so, we say together, and so it is.
So it is.
And we're going to sign off now. And thank you all. See you next week.